Hello, beautiful vegans. Welcome to Empowered Vegans, the show that inspires and empowers vegans to live their best lives. Hosted by me, Mariquita Solis, Vegan Empowerment Coach. Each week, I feature leading experts in the vegan and plant based world, sharing inspirational stories, practical tips, and empowering conversations. My mission is to support the vegan community in living a fulfilling, joyful life while making a positive impact on the world. As a transformational coach, I also offer coaching programs to help vegans navigate challenges and create a life that aligns with their values. And I'm going to be having some group coaching programs starting soon. So I'm very excited about that. So if you're watching from StreamYard, please give us permission to use your name, and we want to hear your comments and questions. So I'm excited to welcome my guest today, Terri West of Plantfully Pittsburgh. She's going to be talking about vegan dining at traditional restaurants and how we can navigate these issues that come up when we go to restaurants that are not vegan and when we're hanging out with our friends that are possibly not vegan, and how we're going to do better, up our game. So welcome, Terri.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks for coming, and thanks, Stephanie, for watching. Stephanie Treasure is here joining us. And so let's get down to the nitty gritty here. So, Terri, how long have you been vegan?
I've been vegan about 5 or 6 years at this point. I have gone in and out of the lifestyle for a little while, but 5 or 6 years.
And so what caused that?
My story pretty much started in entering the whole food plant-based arena about before I went vegan. I tried going on what I called a clean diet, but I had received a diagnosis of estrogen positive, high risk breast cancer, and I did not have it, but I was at a very high risk based on some testing that I had. And at the very same time, I had also noticed I was at the highest weight I had ever been. And it was strongly suggested at that point through a 2-year journey of this that I go on the estrogen lowering medication. And I realized that I needed to do it at that point. And decided that and I just knew in my head, it was just a gut reaction that if I was going to have to take that medicine, then I really needed to make changes in my life to work with it and not against it, not do anything detrimental to my body when I just, any more detrimental than I already had, and to allow the medicine to work properly. So I went on that clean diet that I had talked about, and within 3 months of taking the medication and changing my diet, thinking about the rest of my lifestyle as well, the, sleep and everything else, I went back for a 3-month check and my cell changes were gone. I got a clean report, and my doctor was really quite amazed, like that just doesn't happen in 3 months typically. So I was thrilled with that and kept going. And about another year later, my sister had mentioned to me that she had decided to try a vegan diet, that she had lost some weight, and she was, thrilled with her results so far. And again, I had that gut reaction and that little voice in my head saying, you should be doing this because you are estrogen positive, and you should not be consuming estrogen in animal products. So I decided on my own to go ahead and give it a go. I really didn't tell anybody. I just stopped eating meat. I had already been dairy free because it didn't agree with me. And so that's kind of how I did that. And then just immersed myself in that whole food plant-based world and trying to learn how to eat even better. And what does this look like? And just immersed myself, the plant-based docs, the plant-based influencers, just learning more and more about it, and realized that the culinary world had advanced tremendously, where it was a very tasty way of life at the same time. So I was really enjoying it. And that's how I got there.
Well, that's an inspirational story. Yes. And to be able to put two and two together, I see that you had done the research to know the way that you were eating was hindering, because a lot of people still don't see that when they get sick. They don't make the connection.
It's true. And a lot of it is because those traditional foods that we consume are designed to keep us hooked on them. They don't want to let us go. They want us to keep on eating those processed foods, the oils, the meat products, the dairy products, all designed to keep us addicted to it. Very real. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Pleasure Trap by Dr. Doug Lisle and Dr. Alan Goldstein. Is that, I can't know him. Alan Goldhammer, I'm sorry. And both are fascinating. They're fascinating to listen to and to watch, and their book. But those foods are designed to keep you trapped. And it's very, very difficult to know what you should do and actually do it.
Yeah, and I believe it, because cheese is very addictive. And then you go to the grocery store and you look down the aisles and you see all this junk food, right?
Mhm.
And it's calling you, and then you walk out and you think, why didn't I buy that? Why didn't I buy that? And you crave it, or you see it on TV, like a donut commercial, and it's like then you're just fixated on it, right? And it's
It's so interesting you said that, because I find that with people that I talk to, that cheese is the hardest thing to give up, or to change, I should say. Very hard to change. And even when you are considering trying to replace it, because we always get into the swaps, trying to replace the cheese with vegan cheese. Vegan cheese many times is made with oils, and that is not healthy for your body either. And so I would rather probably eat the real cheese than the oil-based cheeses. So you still have to be very careful. There's some almond products that are a little bit better when you once in a while need that, need a little bit of that. But yeah, that was probably the next step in my journey, was understanding the healthy version of whole food plant-based. I did get into a situation where I was consuming too many of the fats. So we think, okay, everybody talks about the healthy fats. When you're transitioning, sometimes it's very easy to go overboard with the things that really bring the taste to your palate, because your palate is transitioning. And so we're eating a lot of avocado. We can eat our almond butter. We can eat the edamame and the tofu and so many things like that. But when we eat too much of it in one day, I mean, I will share my macros, and my fats were probably at least 40 to 50%. That's way too much in one single day. Those are fats that you can have, but having all of it or too much of it in one day is just too much. And it was affecting my body. I was taking on some inflammation. And when I tried to give blood, found out that I had very high blood pressure, which had never happened to me in my entire life. 194 over 114. Surprising that I was not sent to the hospital. Went to the doctor, and then just really got into trying to take care of it myself. And we followed me, made sure that I was doing okay with that. But it did take 4 to 6 months, but I really relied on doctors like Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. McDougall, really getting into that information to understand where I was going wrong. So I guess my point is, even when you're eating whole food, plant-based, vegan diet, you can still neglect your health. And it's important to understand those things, and to always be thinking about continually improving and bringing in information to live your best life that way. So after about 4 to 6 months, my blood pressure was better than it had ever been, down to 104 over 60. And I knew I was on the right path, and did it without the medication.
That's wonderful. That's exciting. Yes. And those are some good tips, because I'll never forget when I went to the bodies exhibition. This was a long time ago, but I remember the stomach was tiny. And I think,
Yes.
how could the stomach be so small? And the plates,
Right.
like when we go to restaurants, the platters are so big, right? And what's going on here?
Yes. Yes. And that was part of the oil struggle and the fat struggle that I had, is going to eat at restaurants. And when I had shared what I was doing, because I had lost 40 pounds and I was looking better, and people were asking me, what did you do? How are you eating? They could see what I was eating, and they felt their own struggles and their own difficulties. So they would ask, and I would try to help family and friends and myself at the time, but noticed that no matter how clean our kitchens were, no matter how organized we were, no matter how much we prepped at home and did the right things, going outside of the home was always difficult, always pulled us back. Those food addictions were still there, because you look at a menu and think, oh, I just want this and this and this. And when you get to, so my friends, we're empty nesters at this point. You have the money to go out a little bit more often when your kids are out of the house. And we're kind of tired of cooking every night and trying to concentrate a little bit more on maybe careers, doing some other things that we wanted to do. So we didn't want to cook at home every night. We were a little bit done. But going to the restaurants a couple, 3 times a week, and just did not serve our bodies at all. We backslid, because even when we ordered the vegetables, a stir fry or something like that, it was coated in oil, and it just didn't make any sense. It's like getting a yogurt in the restaurant, a yogurt in the grocery store with all the sugary fruit in it. It completely negated it and turns it into an ice cream sundae. Same thing with the oil on the vegetables. You might get some nutrients from the vegetables, but way too much oil that really harms your body. Dr. Esselstyn describes that, and people can look that up if they're interested. I know oils in the vegan and whole food plant-based world are not always understood, especially when people are starting, and can be a little disappointing, because we love to take that bottle of EVOO and turn it into the pan and make up our vegetables, and it's very tasty. Oil gives us a very satiating feel, and it's hard to get away from it. And there are little tricks to it, but that's an important thing to learn about with Dr. Esselstyn if anyone is concerned about the direction of their health, especially their heart health.
Yeah, very good points. And when I know that I've gone to some restaurants on more than one occasion and didn't say no oil, or sometimes I do say it, but then I'll order like vegetable fajitas and they're just sopping in oil.
Yes.
Like the last time I tried to get, I got napkins and tried to soak up the oil. I worked in restaurants many, many, many years, so I don't want to make the cook angry or the chef angry, right? To send
Right.
it back, what are they going to do to it, right?
Right.
We're going to talk about that, but yes. So it's a very tricky situation. So I'm so glad you're here. And I'm glad.
Right.
Yeah. So
that is actually how the idea for my business came about, is that we were at our favorite local restaurant, Mexican restaurant, for dinner. And we loved going there because when we asked them to cook our meals with water instead of oil, they were happy to do it. They loved doing it because they actually feel that the vegetables taste better, their dishes taste better when they're cooked in water. Otherwise, they did come out soaked in oil, because that's what customers expect, and they want to keep their customers happy. So anytime we did it, we would ask for it, even if we got it for takeout, if we were in the restaurant. Sometimes we were educating the wait staff when we asked for it cooked in water, and they looked at us crazy. And I was like, don't worry, they know how to do it. We do this all the time. So, and it did. Even fajitas on that platter came out without the oil, and I would get them done other ways as well, like in a bowl or something like that. And they were happy to do it, but not everyone understands how to do it, and that it still makes good food, and that people who want to eat that way, our palates are adjusted to it, and we just want to taste the good food.
Yes, you're right. And when I look at photos of ads, I can almost see a burger. I'll just see a regular burger, and I'll see like this thing is covered in oil, and I think, gosh, that is what people want to see. I mean, that's obviously attractive to people. This oil drenched burger, and now
Right.
I recognize it because yes, because of the shifts, but definitely being I spent a few days in downtown Atlanta and going out to eat, and I feel like, oh, I feel like I've got to get back to eating better because definitely going out to the restaurants, I know I did the best I could, but and then there were times I just couldn't, I didn't want to, or I just said no, I want to eat the junk, because there's no option on there, and then it's a struggle. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your tips, and tell us, Terri, about how this began with you then, because you were talking about the restaurant, going to the Mexican restaurant and then developing, that you had obviously a relationship with them, a good relationship where they want to do that. So that's the key here, how to develop these relationships with restaurants that are accommodating everybody. So tell us about how you began, how this started.
Sure. So the beginning of my company, my consulting business, started with being in that restaurant, ordering the way we did all the time. And I had been trying to consider what I wanted to do, the next steps with the next phase of my life. I wanted to get into something, for the next 10, 20 years. And I looked at my husband and said, we went through all of our gyrations of going through the menu and, no oil and this and that and the other. And the waiter left, and I looked at my husband. I said, I could completely teach restaurants how to do this. They have no idea how easy it would be for them to serve healthy, plant-based food to their customers with the food that they already have. They don't have to go do anything special. I don't know about you, but if I just see a Beyond Burger or Impossible Burger on a menu and that's the vegan option, to me, that's just the easy way out. That's somebody who really doesn't understand, what vegans want to eat, or those who want to eat in a more healthy direction. They're just doing that to basically serve vegans when they come in. If they happen to pop up and they happen to ask for something, direct them to this, to the Impossible Burger. But to me, but what I would really want to see, a restaurant who really wants to attract the vegan customers to come in, is one who will have some delicious vegan creative offerings for them that they really want to eat. And so that is where I came from. When I looked at my husband and said that, his eyes lit up and he said, you should do that. You are perfect for that. And so that's what led me on that direction. But I will say that restaurant, the name of it is Totopo, that they had it's local here in Pittsburgh, and the owner and his wife, from what I was told by the wait staff, that they are very, that they were very aware of a plant-based life and a plant-based way of eating, and a healthier way of eating. So the direction came from them and to their managers, and the managers do have to constantly train the staff as to what, how to do it, because sometimes if you get somebody in that's new, it's hard to keep up with the staff training that way. However, they paid attention to do it. So I gave a lot of credit to the restaurant and to the owners for putting that emphasis there. And I think it just comes down to the leadership of the restaurant.
Right. Yes. So tell me more about the steps involved, and where you've learned how to do this.
I feel like what I was doing is what I've come to understand most vegans do, whether you're healthy or not. We all do this thing where we look at the menus. So a lot of times what we're doing is looking at menus before we leave the house. If we're trying to choose a restaurant, and we're really surveying everything to see if there are any ingredients that are in the house that could make up a meal for us. So we're looking at the sides, because that's where the simplest ingredients are, the vegetables, the potatoes, that type of thing. Then we're looking at all of the main offerings to see what is accompanying some of the mains, because if they offer a steak, for instance, they may also have potatoes and vegetables with it, or rice. We may also look at the sides or look at the appetizers as well to see. And then we're trying to craft our own dinner. And we can do one of two things. We can just show up and hope that they will do that. And if you are like me and you're trying to get a healthier version of it, you're also asking them to cook it in a different way. So we become that customer who is the difficult one, who wants the kitchen to stop everything, which is difficult when it's very busy. And I completely empathize. But then you're asking them to stop and not only pull different ingredients into a meal, but also cook it without oil and in a non-traditional way. They may or may not know how to do that, and I can understand that. Or we can try to call ahead and talk to the chef and have the chef and ask the chef if they would, and I mean at least a day before, so that the chef could devise something and shop for it if need be, and to make a meal for you for when you arrive. And then you don't have to ask for anything special or ask them to do anything extra. They already know how to prepare your meal. So many chefs are willing to do that, just because they want their customer to be happy, and it gives them a little bit of a creative outlet. So many will do that. Some just won't. Some are just not set up to do that. So you get the option of going with your group and not eating much of anything, or you can choose a different restaurant. And I can get into that in a minute if you want, but that whole exercise of having to look at, of the vegans having to look at that menu. There's even little memes out there and posts not making fun, but just showing what vegans go through when they're going through that menu and trying to figure out what in the world they can eat, and then having to speak and advocate for themselves about how to create their meal. It's fun at first, but then it gets a little bit old. And so I wanted to make it easier for whole food plant-based eaters to be able to get a decent meal, at least in my city. And that's where I came about doing that and wanting to do that, and to really, I want to create places where I can go and eat with my husband and family and friends, and nobody has to worry about what I'm able to eat, because I will have set that up for a number of different restaurants.
Yes, you're right. And I really can relate to this, looking at the menu and then trying to craft it and wondering, what am I going to eat? And then are they going to be wanting to do it? And no, I've had some good experiences with chefs that really want to do something. It's like you said, it's something creative for them. It's like a challenge.
Right.
So, yeah,
right.
It depends. So what do you suggest about, if I was going to a restaurant tonight, just walking in, and how do you handle that with the wait staff if they think you're crazy, if they think you're nuts? What's the best way?
Sure. So they might think you're nuts. When I would suggest, and we talked about this before, about just asking them, do you have a vegan menu? And you would actually be surprised. There may be some that do. I have heard stories about restaurants having a vegan menu. They don't really advertise it, but they will have a small little side menu, or they might have a few things listed in their main menu that have, the V marked on it, or a plant or something like that, where they have vegan items. So the first thing would be to ask, and I would suggest that doing that all of the time, because if restaurants don't hear that there are vegans walking in their door and asking for a vegan meal, they might not know that there's actually a demand. So that would be the first thing to do. And if just the wait staff, tells you, or the host tells you that there isn't, you might want to bring it up to a manager at some point and say, hey, I did come in and I would love to have a vegan meal here sometime because my friends like to come here. And see what they say, see what kind of change that you can make. It doesn't really solve your issue for that night, but it definitely brings it to their attention for another time. And a lot of times we're not just advocating for ourselves, but for the other vegans in the area who also come across the same issue that you do. So we're all in that one together. But beyond that, if there are not dedicated vegan items there, I do precisely what I said before, scanning that menu and seeing what they have. I will then ask the wait staff, hey, what do you do, or what do you think other people are there things that other servers do for your restaurant to make up a healthier meal? And there are many times that that I will get a good response from. They say, oh, I take this from this part of the menu and this here, and I put that together, and that's usually pretty good, and they're happy with that. And other times when the waitstaff is looking at me like I'm speaking a language they don't understand, I ask if the manager wouldn't mind coming over and talking with me about it too, because maybe they might have some suggestions. And it also brings awareness to the manager that they have a vegan in the house, and maybe they can help me again, maybe they can't, but at least it brings the awareness to him. But beyond that, I try to do what I can do. Of course, we're always looking at the salads and taking things off that we don't want and trying to add things in. We're just doing the best that we can with that. Sometimes I will have the salmon dish, no salmon. Can you throw some potatoes on there? Or if there's beans from another part or some rice. And then one trick I like to do to make it a more substantial meal is that I like to ask them to double or triple the amount of vegetables or starches, and be very specific about that doubling or tripling, because if you just ask for that, if you just ask for this, the salmon dish without the salmon, you're not going to get very much food. And as plant-based eaters, we need a lot of food. We need more calories from that to be satiated, and also for balance of nutrients. So if we're specific, then they understand, because people are not going to understand how you eat. It's just, it's foreign to them. So if we're specific, it helps. But I love those dishes that come out that are mounded with those vegetables. And then I go a step further because of the way I eat, and I ask them to cook it in water, that it's okay. My taste buds are accustomed to that. It might not sound appealing to them, but that is how I eat, and it will be okay. And then I ask for, sometimes you need a little soy sauce, or you need a little bit of vinegar. If there's some avocado, some mashed avocado on top, whatever little accoutrements could add a little bit more flavor and texture to your meal. You try to pull it together and do the best that you can with that.
That's very true. And also always remembering to be pleasant with the staff. I mean, that's so important, right? Because if we go in and if we look like we're judging them or we're angry at them, right, they're not going to help us. The wait staff is the first step in getting what you want. If the waiter or waitress likes you, then they're going to help you out. But if they're feeling like you're mad or condescending or, have an attitude, they're just going to say, we can't do it. They'll say, I'll go ask the manager, and they'll come back and say, oh, well, they say we can't do it. I'm sorry. Or the manager's in a meeting, they're not. So it's crucial that we are nice and that we're understanding, even saying, maybe I sound crazy, but my taste buds, I really love things cooked in water, like you're saying, because I would think, what do you mean just water? There's going to be no flavor. But I love it that you address that.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. Unless you're not going to get it unless you ask for it, and ask nicely, like you said, because we are representing all vegans, all plant-based eaters, and we want to make it easier for each other. And every little step, every little bit helps. And when we are good, positive representatives of our community, it encourages the restaurants, the management staff to make those changes that they are wanted and welcome. And it's not just adjusting for us, because part of my business is to say, restaurants, we are, a market out there that you should be tapping into. The demand grows like 700% a year. It's for vegan offerings. We need, we want to spend our money with you. We want to come out and eat with you, but we don't want to feel bad afterwards. I love that when I get my meals that are not cooked in water, that have a great flavor to them, beautiful vegetables, and I feel full, I can walk out and feel wonderful the rest of the day, because I have not consumed foods that just did not agree with me, and that just made me feel terrible. And then it makes me want to come back again, and repeatedly. So that's a lot of business that is out there for them to get. Vegan restaurants, love vegan restaurants. They also have the challenge of how to cook their food in a more healthy manner as well. But, vegans don't just go out with other vegans. Vegans also go out with traditional eaters. And in the groups that we go out with, and if there are people that know us well enough, they know that eating out for you is going to be a little bit more difficult. And when they're empathetic to you for that, what typically happens is that they say, what they will say to me is, okay, Terri, yeah, let's go out next week. That's great. You choose the restaurant. Every time, whether it's just two of us or a number of us, or even if we're ordering food in, I get to pick the restaurant. And what that's called is the vegan veto. And that is a phenomenon that says that the vegan in the group is the one that gets to choose the restaurant, and they can either say yes to a restaurant or they veto a restaurant if they don't think that it will serve them. So it might be a little bit hard being the one to always have to find the restaurant. You can't just show up somewhere. But I like to tell people, you got to choose your heart. You can either feel bad after a meal or you can feel good after a meal. Feeling bad, it's hard. Having to do the work to find a good meal at a good restaurant that your group can go eat at, that's hard too, but you feel good afterwards. So you just got to choose your heart there. But that vegan veto is very real. And pretty soon, perhaps, in the future, things will get better each year. I see more and more healthy vegan options available at restaurants. But for now, the vegans get to choose. And, restaurants, I'm hoping, will start paying attention to that. They're not just turning away one meal, they're turning away 2, 4, 6 meals.
That's a very good point. Even if you go to a restaurant that serves, that's accommodating, but to just let them know the reason my group picked this restaurant was because you accommodate vegans, So but yeah, to express that.
Communication is huge. From beginning to end, like you said, and how you were talking about treating the staff very nicely and being a very positive representative of the vegan community. And I have even gone another step further and asked to talk to the chef before I even thought about doing my business. And when it was slower, a couple of times I've asked to speak with the chef, and I would tell them my meal was amazing and I truly appreciate what you went to at the last minute to create that for me. But can you tell me, was it hard for you to do that? You know, what did it do to the back of the house there? Did I, cause you some grief? What happened to all of that? And it created a nice conversation with them so that I knew how to order the next time, or to call ahead of time to say that I was coming and could the chef make this for me again. And the one time, the chef told me, I was happy to do it. It was fun to do it. And I had no problem with it. He said, maybe other people might have had a problem with it, but at the same time, it was a slower time of the day that I had visited, and he had the time to do it. So it didn't make it difficult. He said, if it was busier, of course, it would be more difficult to accommodate. And then it affects the other orders for my table and how long it would, their timing gets thrown off. So, I try to be empathetic for, how the restaurant is set up to serve its customers as well.
Yeah, we have to do that. I mean, we have to be empathetic to them also. So we got some great comments here. Cassandra, Claudia, aka Claudia, is here watching. So thanks for watching. And we've also got someone saying oil is the vegan killer.
It is.
And Philip is saying, let's see here. Thanks for watching, Philip. I can completely align to both sides of the situation.
Mm.
And someone is saying hummus. I love hummus. Yeah.
I love hummus too. You just got to watch the extra oil that's in hummus sometimes, because it's already made with tahini, which is very tasty. But adding, even when you get it from the restaurant or from the grocery store, it can have extra oil as well. And you want to be careful with that. But when we get it in a restaurant, sometimes we have to pick and choose. When we go, even when we know we go to a place that offers healthier things like that, if we get the hummus, we have to try to remember to tell them, at least don't add any extra oil, because sometimes they put extra on the top or on the bottom, even with some other things too. Sometimes it's going to happen because you forget that, but at least doing that much, at least decreases the amount of oil in your meal. If they're able to cook the rest of it in water, but you get the hummus and it's sitting in oil. So, but if it's made with some oil, then your body can probably handle it a little bit more if the rest of your meal is pretty clean.
Yeah, you're right, because they do drizzle that oil everywhere. I mean, I used to do it too. So, and I never thought anything of it because that's the way we were raised.
Right. It makes it completely addictive. And I solved that mentally for myself when I was cooking at home by taking that olive oil container, that you would have sitting out that has the little spout, the glass container. And I took the oil out, washed it, and now I have that sitting in front of my cooktop with water in it. So I get the same feel of adding the water to the pan and throwing the vegetables in as I did with the oil. But visually, I love seeing that I have saved myself hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calories, not to mention the damaging effect that the oil has on our cardiovascular system. And it's still fun to cook that way then.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to drizzle your water, get it ready on your vegetable. Yeah, it is fun. So tell us about the process. If we're going to be talking to restaurants, or you're going to be doing, or like you've done, talking to managers and bringing on this menu. Tell us about that.
Sure. So when I mentioned that I wanted to start my consulting business, I had was working at how I wanted to do it, what I wanted to talk to restaurants about, what I could offer, what I could do, just, doing the same thing I did as if I was visiting, pulling from their menu, figuring out, and letting them know how they can serve their vegan customers. And I had to figure out that part of my craft. Then I had to figure out the business part of it. And there was just so many moving parts to doing this consulting business. It got to be a little bit overwhelming, but I was still determined to go forward with it. And I remember just sitting there one day thinking, how is it that nobody else has done this before? There's so many vegans that do this. We all look at the menus. We all do this. How is nobody else telling the restaurants to do this? So I quickly did another search and found a company who was doing it, and the name of it is Vegan Hospitality. And it was started by a very dynamic woman named Meredith Marin. And she did precisely what I was talking about doing. And she started doing that in about 2017. And she, in 2 years, took Aruba, which is where she was based. She's originally from New York City. They had moved to New York City. She had moved to Aruba when she married her husband there. And she started going, long story for her. However, she started going to the restaurants and helping them to create vegan menus and learning how to comfortably serve vegans and attracting more business. And in 2 years, Aruba went from very few vegan offerings to being the vegan destination of the Caribbean. They had, the most to offer vegans there. So when the pandemic hit, she had to move back to Florida, and she designed a program to teach other people to do exactly what she did. And that was exactly what I was looking for. I didn't find it until this year when I decided to do the same thing. But at around 2019, 2020 is when she started her program to teach other people to do that. She now has vegan hospitality consultants around the world, I think like 22 different countries, and is doing amazing things, not just with restaurants, but also hotels, cruise lines, any kind of hospitality who would be serving vegans, resorts. So it's very exciting that I was able to find the shortcut to it. She did more than I was even dreaming of. And it's just wonderful to talk to people that speak the same language. And the entire design is to help restaurants to either create a separate vegan menu that would give a number of offerings for the vegans who visit, or to incorporate it into a very large menu to do the labeling for them there. And the entire thing, it's not just, to comfortably serve vegans, it's also to help restaurants to increase their own business. So it's a win-win for both sides. And restaurants are finding that they have more people to serve out there who want plant-based options than they realize, because it's not just people who are 100% vegan who want these dishes. It's also people who say, I don't feel like eating meat tonight, or I want to start eating a little bit healthier. There's a whole range of people who are interested in those dishes. And I've got to tell you, those vegan dishes, think about how we talk about eating the rainbow and how beautiful our dishes turn out to be with all the different colors of the vegetables and the starches and the whole grains. They turn out beautifully. And they're so creative that other people see them and they want to order the same thing. So many times I've ordered the way I do, and people I'm eating with say, I should have gotten that because it looks beautiful. So, and it's creative, and it really elevates what the restaurant is able to do. And they are really able to serve those modern guests who expect more, who want more out of their food for health reasons, for ethical reasons, And it just makes the restaurant look so much better to their guests. So it's very exciting to get into this and to help the restaurants do that, and for patrons to be able to go into a restaurant and feel comfortable being able to order from their very own menu, or from a clearly labeled main menu. And part of what we do is also to serve the staff, is to train the staff from the front of the house and the back of the house, so that they can answer questions, so that they can offer these menus, and to be able to talk about it, and then be able to talk with the serving, the back of the house too, so that there's clear lines of communication, and that the back of the house, it does not create stress for them. They're able to prepare those meals because they're ready to prepare those meals, and everything, the timing is not affected. There's no stress in it. And, vegan plant-based eaters are always so grateful when they get a great meal. They will sing your praises to everyone who will listen. And so they make for great marketing tools. So you really want the vegans in your house. You want them to eat really great food. You want them to feel wonderful when they leave, and they will leave you great reviews.
That's very true. And that reminds me, I need to leave a review. I went to a little coffee shop and ordered a vegan biscuit. And then the owner came out and he brought the biscuit and he said, "Oh, it's a little crumbly, but here's a vegan scone to go with it." That was just so sweet. And I loved his attitude. It was beautiful. I felt very welcome. We were having that little downtime, that down weekend. So it was a blessing. So, and I kept saying, I got to write a review. So you just reminded me, and really to always write reviews, because that matters. And I know that I'm the first one that'll forget to write the review, right? But yeah, please,
Sure.
let's get out there and write these reviews, and tell the manager, even call the manager over and say, "Thank you for accommodating me," so that they really feel grateful. And we feel grateful, and they are grateful for the whole process, and we all can have gratitude. It's so important.
Oh, it really is. It really is. And we're doing a service, like I mentioned before, for each other as well. It's not just for you and each time you would come in, but when we are looking for places to eat, when that, vegan veto comes into play and you are scouring where to eat, what helps is reviews. I love going into the reviews and saying, okay, what did this person eat? How did this person create something? Was the chef able to accommodate them here? So those reviews help each other as well. So you get a lot of synergy, from this communication. Communication is huge as we're trying to make a more accommodating world for plant-based eaters to live in. It just helps us to feel more inclusive in the restaurant. Too many times we go in and we have to label ourselves as that customer, that we have to be difficult. And we don't want to be difficult customers. We want to be included just like everyone else is. And it's very understandable that traditional culinary training did not include plant-based dishes. It didn't include healthy plant-based dishes. We understand that, but things are definitely changing. And as we keep saying, our tastes changed, what we want has changed. So the demand, the market demand for the restaurants is people want healthier food, and this is how you can provide it. And too many times they don't understand our tastes. They're not trained that way, and that's okay. That's where vegan hospitality comes in. That's where all our consultants come in to try to say, we're not chefs. Some of us are, but for the most part, we don't have that culinary background, but we do have a background in being vegan, being plant-based, how to cook that way, how things taste to us, and we can help you we can give you the shortcuts, understanding how to deliciously and comfortably serve your vegan guests.
Well, that's what we need, definitely. And so, what if somebody's really resonating with this and they want to take on talking to managers and making shifts and asking for these menus? What would you suggest to them?
Um, Take advantage of every situation that you can. For some people, this requires some uncomfortable action because maybe you're somebody that has worked in restaurants before, or you're just not comfortable speaking up and advocating to yourself. Do it little by little. If it is more comfortable trying to do it over the phone, you could do that. You can, stop in ahead of time during off hours and try to talk to them. And I would suggest making these phone calls at off hours, not at peak time. You want to do it when they have time to really talk to you for a few minutes. Talking with the hostesses, talking with the serving staff. Communication, we keep saying, is huge. It's key. And if we don't do it, you'll never get used to it. So practice every little time that you can get. And as we said, with a smile, with a great attitude, without being disappointed or angry if they couldn't do it, and not being disappointed and angry if a dish comes out and it's not the way you expected. If it ends up having some oil on it, if there's not enough vegetables, if it's a dry salad, you might have to speak up again and say, hey, could you bring me some of that balsamic out, please? Or could I have a little bit more, can I have some more vegetables, about another cup of vegetables to go with this? It might feel like management and chefs are unreachable, but they're really not. They're really not. If they don't have the feedback, they won't know what kind of business is out there for them to go after. So the more that we speak up, the more comfortable we make it for ourselves and for the restaurants to be able to serve us.
Right. Well, we have to be advocates for ourselves. We have to use our voice. And like you said, if it just goes slowly, take practice, maybe if even writing a letter to the restaurant, an email is one solution.
Absolutely. Email is a great idea as well. And I do know some people who will make up a little card that will list on there, and especially if you have allergies, and will put on there, my health needs for my meals include this. And if it says, please cook with water, no oil, please, put extra vegetables on, please, whatever it is, I don't eat any animal products. However you want to phrase it, you can make up little cards and hand it to the waiter and say, this is what I saw from your menu. Can you give this card to the chef so that they can see? Because the wait staff might be overwhelmed too, might not write down everything right. That communication from the front of the house to the back of the house could get lost a little bit. If you have a little card written down that he can just pass on, then that would be helpful as well. So there's a lot of little things you can do. It might just depend on the restaurant, the time of the day. You do what you can, but it would be really great practice just to start speaking up and start saying something, because if you don't, then you can't really expect anything to change, and you can't expect anything to be different. That's not the way they've been trained, and we're here to help them.
That's a great idea. I love the idea of a card, because you're right. A lot of times when I was a server, I couldn't remember everything. I would try to, right? But if I was able to have a card, that would be amazing. So I wouldn't forget anything. And here's the card. And also to acknowledge, I realize that this might take a little bit longer. So take your time. You want to take the pressure off, anything to make it easier, right? I know that, that might not be something you're used to doing. So please take your time. And I'm really grateful that you're willing to help me here as much as you can.
Right. Absolutely. That gratitude goes a long way.
Right.
We have an organization here in Pittsburgh called Vegan Pittsburgh, and they have listings by area of the city as to which restaurants have clearly labeled vegan items on their menus. But they also have cards available, those little cards available that you can get from them to be able to hand out too. So there's other organizations that are willing to help. Like most vegans are aware of, like Happy Cow nationally, to be able to look up vegan restaurants. But there's also local company websites, groups, travel groups, tourist groups that have different communication sites for vegans to be able to figure out where to eat in a city. So if it's in your own, you look on Facebook groups, you look on Instagram groups, it might mean that if you're not comfortable doing that, that might be the uncomfortable action you take, trying to become a part of it just to find out where to eat in the city. And there's a lot of groups, even if they're not vegan groups, if they're regular food groups, that would have posts that would just have people chime in to say what restaurants they have found that have been able to provide them meals the way that they want them. So it takes a little bit of work again, but it's worth it. So that we don't go out to a restaurant and feel bad. When we go and travel, I always look up the restaurants in an area, but I also try to join some of the local Facebook, Instagram groups in that area too, because they know exactly where to go. Even on TripAdvisor, be a part of a forum or create a discussion saying, this is how I like to, this is how I like to eat, who has suggestions. And I guarantee you there's other people that are wanting to know the same thing. And so it's a great post to have on there that could be looked up by other people who come along and are wanting to know the same thing. So, there's a lot of things that we can do to advocate for ourselves, and research that we can do. It is possible to be able to go out and have meals that make us feel good, that align with our ethics. It just means that maybe we have to do a little bit more work, but that's okay. It's worth it.
It is worth it. And you reminded me of some cards I used to have, and I don't know if it was from PETA. I don't know who it was from, but they said, I thank you for the vegan options that you have here, and you leave them on the table. So these are very important things that we could do today. I mean, like, I challenge everybody after this to call up a restaurant and just say, hey, I just want to thank you for having vegan options. I appreciate it, right? Just to share that, ask to speak to the manager and tell the manager you appreciate it, because all these little things move us forward.
Sure. Because if we ask for it and they do it, but we don't say anything, they might think, oh, well, they must not have liked it. So there's no incentive for them to keep doing the same thing. And it's hard work. Restaurant work is hard work. I mean, even the managers are in there at least 6 days a week. It's, the chefs, it is such hard work. They need to hear that good feedback. Otherwise, why would they work hard on something that they don't think is paying off?
Exactly. And we could take over as like, the vegans are not difficult, but the vegans are so grateful, right? We have a chance to switch.
We really are. We're so grateful when, so I remember before I even went plant-based, a lot of people would just say, I'm so grateful when someone else makes me a salad because I didn't have to go to all the work. Salads always taste better in a restaurant. Well, take that and multiply it by 100 by the way, as to how a vegan eater feels when a restaurant properly prepares them food. And they are so grateful to have someone else go to all the effort to chop the vegetables and to cook them properly and to make them taste amazing. That's a lot of work, and they really appreciate that. So if you feel that gratitude, absolutely share it. Share it in person, share it online. It goes a long way to help everyone keep moving forward with those plant-based meals.
Amen to that. Yes, and this has been a very wonderful discussion here. And let's see. We have some comments about a hornet's nest. So Claudia, I hope you get your hornet's nest resolved. It's hard, to take care of animals and ourselves sometimes. So yes, and so please, if you're watching and you enjoyed this, we have this every week. So please hit subscribe. So I see we're coming to the end of our hour, Terri, and I've gotten so much important information. I think the main thing is for me to communicate my gratitude so that they'll want to do it again. And also, so for the next vegan that comes in, they'll remember that positive experience instead of a complaining vegan who got mad, right? We have so much power in our hands, right?
Absolutely. We really do. We really do.
So Terri, where can, do you have any final thoughts or anything? And let us know where people can reach out to you.
Well, to reach out to me, I do have Instagram and Facebook at Plantfully Pittsburgh. And I am literally just getting started. So I don't even have anything on there yet, but it is coming very soon. I will have a website at plantfullypittsburgh.com. And also, if you want more information about vegan hospitality, please also look them up as well, because they have some great ideas on there as well. And if anybody is interested in trying to pursue that path and really taking it to the next level and solving their problems, look up vegan hospitality as well.
All right. Well, everybody, definitely let's think about how we can make our dining experiences more memorable, enjoyable for everyone. And thank you, Terri. And look, here's a nice comment from Claudia. Thank you so much for this charming and interesting live stream. Yes, thanks. Thanks everybody for joining us. It's been very informative and I feel very inspired. So thank you, Terri.
Thank you, Mariquita. Very nice to see you and talk with you.
Namaste vegan, everybody. Bye-bye.